Hello and welcome to this video on calculating a weighted mean. This video is intended for students in Essential Math 40S in your statistics unit, and this is to help you out if you're having a bit of trouble with the formula. So a weighted mean is finding a mean, which is another way of saying the average, where some scores count for more than other scores. So looking at that, your math mark is most likely calculated using a weighted mean. Right? If your teacher said to you tests are worth more than assignments, they're weighting the tests heavier than the assignments when calculating your final mark. That means if you have a test of 0% and one assignment at 100%, your mark isn't 50% halfway between them. It would be closer to 0. Same thing the other way around. If you had a test at 100 and an assignment at 0, your final mark wouldn't be 50%, it would be higher than 50% because your test is worth more than the assignment. And since you got the 100, it's going to be worth more, weighted more. Let's look at a couple examples. So here's a normal sort of example you might actually see in your class. So in your class, tests are weighted at 75% of your final mark and assignments are 25% of your final mark. If your test average, so if the average of all your tests is 60%, your assignment average is 80%, calculate your final mark. It's important to note here that if there was no weighting at all, your final mark would be 70, the number halfway between your tests and your assignments. Because if they were weighted evenly, your mark would be right between them. But they're not. Your tests are worth more than your assignments. So in order to calculate this, there's a formula that you see. It'll be given to you on your exam formula sheet, and you'll also see it in your book as you're looking through the weighted mean lesson. You take each of your scores, and there could be more than two, there could be as many as you need on top. You take each of your scores and you multiply it by the weight. And then you add up your score times the weight for all your scores and weights. And then you divide that by the sum of the weights. So here's what that looks like for this example. The weighted mean is my score. So my average is 60%. Your teacher probably told you about converting percents to decimals. You actually don't have to do that in the weighted mean formula. It's a nice little bonus. So it's just 60 times the weight of my tests. My test is 60%. So the weighting for tests is 75%. So I go 60 times 75 plus 80, my mark on my assignments, times the weight for the assignments, which is 25, and then I divide that whole thing by 100. And where I'm getting 100 from, that's the sum of the weights, which means add up the weights. 75 plus 25 is 100. Now when you type this into your calculator, you're either going to want to put brackets around the top of this fraction, or you're going to want to type in the top, press equals, and then go divided by 100 and press equals again. If you put it in correctly, you should get an answer of 65, which is a percent. Since your scores were percents, it'll be the same unit as whatever the scores are. And that is your final mark for the course if you were in this situation. Notice it's lower than 70 because your tests were lower than your assignments and they're weighted more heavily. A trickier kind of question is when they give you your score not as a percent, but as a score out of a certain number. So in your dance class, 85% of your mark is based on performance, actually dancing, and 15% of your mark is based on theory, the stuff you learn in the books. So you scored 13 out of 20 on your performance and 9 out of 10 on theory. What's your final grade? If you have a question like this where your scores are fractions themselves, it's probably easier to convert them both to percents first. So 13 divided by 20 times 100 will turn that into a percent. That's 65%. And then 9 out of 10 times 100 is 90%. You want to work with your scores as percents just so this formula doesn't get too unwieldy when you put it all together. So now the weighted mean for your dance grade is your first score. So your performance score was 13 out of 20 or 65%. So 65 times the weight of 85 plus your your theory mark was 9 out of 10, which is 90%, times the weight for theory, which is 15%, and then divided by, and again, I want to add up the weights. 85 plus 15 is 100. It's important to note here, 100 on the bottom is common, but it's not necessary. Your weights could add up to anything. They could add up to 500 or 210 or 6. It just depends on how the weights are expressed. So you type in, again, the top part of this fraction, either type it in and press equals or type it in brackets, and then divide it by 100. And what you'll get is 68.75. That'll be a percent again because these were percents. And that is your dance mark. I hope that quick video helped you out a little bit with weighted means. Thanks for watching.